I have a couple of questions for you. One of them relates to dreaming and waking up. Like you say, waking up in the morning, that's when you are the most able to not have resistance. I feel like I wake up and within a couple of seconds, I'm already feeling resistance. How can I, and then dreaming, sometimes I wake up in the middle of a dream and I feel like it's a bad dream. And so can you...
What you think about and what comes to you and how you feel always match. So, as we say, you create your own reality. That's how it happens. You're thinking it, you're feeling it, and it's manifesting. You are creating your own dream reality too. And so, what you're thinking about and how you're feeling about it is manifesting in your dreams. Your dreams, there is a wonderful way for you to acknowledge what's going on vibrationally, particularly if you're not sensitive to how you've been feeling, and so you're not really keeping up with releasing resistance when it comes. So sometimes you get momentum going that you don't realize that you've got going because they're beliefs that you've held for a while, and so you keep believing them and life keeps showing them to you, and so you develop these patterns of thought, these patterns of expectation, which then play out in vivid form in your dreams. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would use dreams in this way. We would say when we put ourselves to bed, we would say, I realize that I'm going to dream, because you do whether you realize it or not. I know that I'm going to dream. And when I awaken, if I recall the dream, the first question I'm going to ask myself is, how did it feel? Because that's the most important information that's coming from the dream. Now, as we are dovetailing this conversation of dreams with this conversation of getting on the high-flying disc, we want to say to you that it really, really, really is accurate that when you slumber, you stop the momentum of your thought. But the propensity, the logical sequence of the way you're thinking is not going to change instantly. That's why we're saying it takes about 30 days for you to say, I'm going to care about how I feel in the morning, and I'm going to reach for the best feeling thought that I can find. So what you're reaching for, if you are in the situation that you are, where your thoughts tend to run away with you, sometimes people say, Abraham, it's not like I'm thinking my thoughts, it's like my thoughts are thinking me. And we say, that's because there's some momentum going. So if you go to bed at night intending to wake up and say to yourself, I'm going to press the reset button. This reset button, like I'm being born into this physical body, I'm going to be at my most allowing state. I'm going to be at my least resisting state when I awaken in the morning. So just sort of say that to yourself as you go to sleep. And then when you wake up, the important thing is to catch yourself in the very early stages of it. Esther discovered she had to get right out of bed the minute she was conscious, because if she stayed there, her thoughts were likely, they had been sort of wandering toward unwanted thoughts. And so she discovered the other day, she woke up, stayed in bed, woke up again, stayed in bed, woke up again, stayed in bed, and she said, I'm back, because it was a long time. When she woke up, she better get up and she better get focused upon something, otherwise her mind was going to wander into unwanted places, you see. So it's just a matter of caring about how you feel and then just guiding yourself gently. Don't be mean to yourself. Don't beat up on yourself. Just reach for the best feeling thought that you can find. Now, we've noticed, and you've noticed it too, that the more general your thought is, the less resistance it is likely to have within it. So when you're making that transition from those uncomfortable thoughts. So dreams are full of information, but they are full of information that your emotions are already giving you. If you're having a chronic bad dream about something, there's something bothering you. And you know you're thinking about it, not when you're dreaming. You know you're talking about it, not when you're dreaming. In other words, the essence of that is active within you, and that's why it's coming to you in every way that it can be revealed to you, because it's just an amplification of how you feel about something. But the point that we're wanting to get across in a very powerful way is that you have control about how you feel about everything. You just have to begin to exercise it a little bit, you see.
So when the dream comes and it's a persistent feeling, it's not so much the topic of the dream, it's the feeling in the dream.
When we awaken and we realized, if we were standing in your physical shoes and we would awaken and realize that we'd had that recurring dream again and that the feeling was there, the first thing that we would say is, dreams are good, they help me work the bugs out of things, and we'd leave it right there. It's going to be fun to let this go little by little. And I don't have to think about this. Clearly, it's active in my vibration, but it's becoming less active all the time. It was just talk it down. Just talk it down. I'm looking forward to the time when this dream is gone altogether. Or I really love my high-flying dreams. I really love those good-feeling dreams. I have those too. In other words, just talk yourself into feeling good. Now, for some of our physical friends, this conversation, it feels a little troubling because it sounds to you like what we're saying is, don't face reality. That's exactly what we're saying. Because facing reality just regurgitates reality. Now, there's plenty of reality that you want to keep replicated in your life experience, but you want to learn to be a more selective sifter. So you want to keep the thoughts that feel the best and leave the thoughts that feel the worst. And so if it's a thought that doesn't feel good, general will slow it down. If it does feel good, more specific will speed it up. But you want to be discerning of which it is. So the first thing that you want to do, anytime you're aware that you're feeling any emotion, is say, good for me, my guidance is really working. This is really a good thing. Esther loves driving. She would drive all day, every day, if she could find a place to go and a reason to go there. And she's pretty good at finding a place to go and a reason to go there, and something to drive there in. And all along many of the highways across the country are those little bumps along the edge of the road. And she really enjoys moving along, and every now and again, bump, especially when she was driving the monster bus. It's big, it wants to take up a lot of room. Bump. And she never took it as an indictment of her morality. She never took it as an indication of her worthiness. She took it as an indication, keep going in this trajectory and you're going off the road. Guidance. Just guidance. Guidance that is easy to correct from. And that's what your emotions are. That's even what all manifestations are about. Just guidance to help you to correct the trajectory. But you do it with the power of your mind. And you mold it by caring about the way you feel. Something more? Did we get there?
Yes. I guess related to that is falling out of an airplane. Your analogy with falling out of an airplane. I do that pretty well. And
well, we like that analogy. If you haven't heard it, where have you been? Because it's the analogy that we use the most. But it's like our physical friends say, Abraham, I have fallen out of an airplane and I have no parachute. What do you suggest I do now? And we say, hang on, it will be over in a little bit. And that's momentum, isn't it? And so sometimes there is a trajectory that you haven't practiced what you really want enough, and so that trajectory is going to play itself out. And will continue to play itself out until you replace it with a different trajectory. But the thing that we so want you to understand is that you don't have to dig down and get to the bottom of those negative trajectories. In fact, there is no bottom. Because the more you try to figure out what's gone wrong, the more the universe will reveal to you more evidence that it is going wrong. Law of attraction is just that way. And so if you will accept that there's no bottom, and so you will stop trying to get to the bottom of it, but instead just take the negative emotion as the indicator, and then at the next best opportunity, reach for a good feeling thought. And what we're saying to you today is, in many cases, not every case, in many cases, the next best opportunity is when you first awaken tomorrow morning. But it's a long time to wait. But it is the next best opportunity. So once we convinced Esther of that, she didn't want to blow it for the day.
Right.
In other words, she wanted to get there. She wanted to acknowledge that she was there. And we're not talking about bringing yourself to bouncing off the wall enthusiasm. We're not talking about getting so high that you want to go out screaming into the woods your appreciation of all life. We're not talking about that kind of momentum. There's usually not that kind of momentum first thing in the morning. We're just talking about having a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of well-being, a feeling of right place, right time, a feeling of, isn't this a nice day, a feeling of at oneness with the universe, a feeling of appreciation that the sun is coming around whether you can see it behind the clouds or not, a realization that the earth is spinning in its orbit, and all things, most things that are important to you are really in a good place, and that everything is working out for you. Just make those general statements to yourself. Find someone who's easy to love and focus on them, or find something that you really appreciate and focus on that, or find something that doesn't have much dynamic in either case and just focus on that. In other words, sometimes Esther will just take a notebook and draw a room and move furniture around in the room just to see how it looks on paper. Just for fun. Not for any reason except that as soon as she gets back to the property, there's a desk she wants to move into the guest house because it would be much more comfortable. She realizes there's no place to really get ready in the guest house, and there's a guest there with no place to really get ready. And so she got out her notebook and had the best time just drawing a place for a guest to get ready in the guest house. You see what we're getting at? Mm-hmm. Now, it might not seem like life-changing things, but anything that occupies your mind in a way that feels good to you means you're in vibrational alignment with source energy. So you can hold yourself steadily on things that don't feel very important to you, and in that steady place of non-resistance about things that don't feel very important to you, insight comes about things that do feel very important to you. But you can't get to very important things that really feel good to you from an awareness of the very important things that you want are not happening. In other words, there's too much of a vibrational gap, where if you start in the middle, not feeling particularly bad or good, and reach for feelings of satisfaction, as you maintain that sort of momentum, what begins to happen is thoughts begin to flow. And isn't life made up of day-to-day, lifetime experiences? Aren't they the conversations? Isn't it the day-to-day movement that makes up the majority of your life? Don't you really want this moment to be one of satisfaction rather than distress? Don't you want this moment to be one of clarity rather than confusion? Don't you want to feel humorous? Don't you want to feel lighthearted about life and about others? Don't you want to feel eager about what you're doing or interested in your day? Don't you want to feel interested in whatever it is that you're watching on television or reading about? Don't you just love the feeling of energy moving? You know those feelings that we're talking about, and we're wanting to remind you that this is Source reading with you, Source watching with you, Source speaking with you, Source creating with you. In other words, you're just not happy doing it alone, and yet you have relegated yourselves to doing it alone because somebody's convinced you that you got to prove your worthiness, which means you got to get off in the corner by yourself, and you got to prove what you're made of, which means you got to prove how much you're willing to suffer in order to get to the good stuff. And we say, you don't get to the good stuff through suffering. You get to the good stuff through savoring. You get to the good stuff through reaching for thoughts that feel good to you.
So the fact that even a couple of times or more than that a day that I'm falling out of an airplane again, I don't need to get irritated with myself. I can just say, here I am. And maybe every time I can catch it a little sooner so that I can maybe not fall all the way down to the ground.
Well stated. You just get better and better at this. And as our friend was talking about this being tethered to this high-flying disc, we want you to understand, this bungee cord is really resilient. And really, when you think about it, you are eternally tethered to this vibration of well-being. In other words, you just can't separate yourself from it. You are eternally tethered to this vibration of well-being. And so what if you find a thought that doesn't allow you to be there? How are you going to know it? Can you imagine a sculptor taking a big clump of clay and just splatting it on the table and then complaining, well, I thought I'd be better at this. I don't like that at all. Or can you imagine an artist with his first paint and brush, sort of trying to make something of it, and don't you want to mold it into place? And so when you begin to consciously and deliberately mold the energy, can't you give yourself, when a child is learning to walk and falls down, you say, get up, you little dummy. You don't say that, do you? You expect to be able to find your balance. And that's all we're talking about. Give yourself a break. Chill out. Don't ask yourself to be on the high-flying disc when this is the first time that you've really even focused upon it. It makes sense to you. You're feeling resonance with it. But you haven't been practicing getting there and staying there. You've been practicing observing what anybody's going to show you. And you've been trying to gravitate toward things that feel good. That's why you choose the friends you choose and the programs you watch and the books you read. We know that you are wanting to guide your life. You've just never guided it with this sort of infinitesimal care and attention and understanding. But you've never understood about vibration before. You've never understood about the power of leverage that comes from alignment. And now that you are understanding that, you can't go back. Jerry and Esther used to say quite often, we should change the disclaimer that you sign that lets you know that you're going to be recorded, maybe videotaped, and it might show up somewhere. And by the way, you can't go back. Once you understand that you are vibration, you will never be able to not understand that again, because you felt resonance with your source who has known it and wanted you to know it. And if we've said it in a way that you've heard it, now you know it and you can't go back from that. Now that you know that you are the creator of your own reality, you cannot go back from that. You can never again blame someone else without knowing it's not really your fault. We just rendezvoused on the Henri disc, and here we are together proving to each other where we are vibrationally. That's all that's going on here.